Welcome to the XY Advisor podcast, where it's our goal to help you become the best financial advisor possible and drive the positive evolution of financial advice. Hub24 is an ASX-listed company with over $15 billion funds under management and one of the fastest growing platforms in the market. Neither a bank nor part of a bank, Hub24 focuses entirely on connecting advisors to a broad range of investment solutions for their clients. Discover why other advisors think Hub24 are the best in the market and access the benefits of choice and efficiency for you and your clients with their market-leading managed portfolio solution. To find out more, visit hub24.com.au. G'day, how's it going? What do you know? Striker Light, Clayton here from XY Advisor, just with James Sutherland. What's happening, man?
Mate, I was going to say, started the year off. I love the line I heard somewhere on the socials about a couple of days ago. It said, now that the trial period for 2020 is over, I guess I better get on with it.
The trial period.
You know, you get the 30-day trial period.
Yeah.
So this was posted on like the 1st of February. So the trial period for the year is over. Let's move on.
I do like that. Yeah. So, mate, it's good to get you in here. It's good to have you on.
We've been trying for a while, haven't we?
We have. It's because you're the best dressed, oldest millennial I've ever met in my life. Because you're definitely a millennial. You just were born in the wrong generation.
Yeah. Some people think the same thing. What do they call it? An aging anopausal deadbeat, I think they call it.
Oh, I would never say that. Mostly because I don't know half those words.
Well, I can interpret it for you and the listener if you want to.
Please.
And I think anopausal, I think they call it, is the male form of menopause.
Okay,
so it's politically correct for me to say anopausal. If I had have said menopause,
the other one,
then it wouldn't have been.
Understood.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. I learn something new every day.
Trying to be inclusive and
right, of course, naturally, you're a millennial.
And what is it? Non-gender binary.
That binary.
Binary. That's the word.
You get there, mate. Hey, look. Hey, you're still not past the trial period, right?
No, I'm not.
So, we're in today because you're one of the most experienced people in financial services, first and foremost, that I get to speak to on a quasi-regular basis. Obviously, we're separated by states. You're a Queenslander. Have you always been a Queenslander?
Yeah, I think I moved there in 1980 from
Right.
Sydney, so I'm not sure if that classifies me as a Queenslander still or not.
Mate, 1980?
Yes.
Well, that means you were
did
there.
say I was older.
If you've been there since origin, the state of origin, you're definitely a Queenslander.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I lived about 1.5 kilometres from where the state of origin started, so I used to wander down and just get a ticket at the gate and just wander in and sit on the sideline just for.
That's sensational. Yeah. When did you get into financial services?
Initially in 83.
That's a great year. Great year.
Was it a good year, was it?
What
happened in 83 that I need to know about,
mate,
Clayton?
Apparently...
Other than your birthday.
Yeah, exactly. There's nothing else.
And I sold that business. That was very much around insurance.
Wow.
Multi-agency stuff. And then I sold that in around 1990.
Interesting. Okay, so 7 years.
Yes.
Cool.
Is that 7 year each maybe?
Yeah, and also like pretty smart because, and I've had this discussion before, it's easy, well, not easy. It's still difficult, but there's a limit. There's almost like an upward limit of revenue you can earn before you need to change your whole business. So you can earn up to about, and there's a lot of research around this, about the $2 million revenue per year mark. And then if you try to go above that, it's like a whole barren wasteland all the way up to about 10 million. And between 2 million and 10 million, many people never get there because it's very, 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 very difficult because you go from like morning huddles and you know, like having conversations with the person who sits next to you through to, hey, when did that staff member start? And then locking like the stationery cupboard and things like that. And the business changed so much between 2 and 10 million that it's almost worth never trying to take a business beyond that sort of handful of employees and under $2 million and then selling it, because you could probably get a company to around or just under 2 mil on a more regular basis than and selling them each time than it would take for you to get to 2 million through that barren wasteland all the way up to 10 million to get the benefit on the other side.
Sure.
So that probably wasn't front and center of your mind, but is that sort of the strategy?
Yeah, well, it's kind of you to think that I had a $2 million business.
Yeah. Well, back in 1990, mate, so.
When a dollar was a dollar.
Yeah.
So it was, you had to decide what you're going to do next, and there was some things happening, and I just wanted to get out, and I did some marketing and management consultancy.
Cool.
I won't bore you with the details in that. And then I came back in 1996 or 97. I can't actually remember the exact year. And then I've been in it ever since and sold 2 businesses during that time.
Yeah, right. So, well, there you go. So you've been following sort of that idea. And the reason why it's front and center in my mind is actually discussing this exact strategy this morning, that a financial planner took the business eventually to $15 million revenue, but it took them 15 years. Whereas to get to this sort of 2 million or equivalent stage back in the 90s, they actually were able to get there in a handful of years. And so it's actually not a bad strategy to commence a business, get it to, under 2 mil, sell it, start again. That's actually a relatively good strategy. So
I'd like to say that was planned.
for you to have actually done it, it's like 3 times. That's kind of cool.
Yeah. And there's been other issues around the reason for selling.
Sure.
The last one I sold is because I wanted to create not a legacy, what do you call it? Estate planning, what do you call it?
Aged care?
Jesus. We might take that bit out. Or on Clayton may leave it. Depends what Succession was the word I was after.
Oh, right.
Succession.
Sorry, mate. Sorry. So you were looking for someone to come in and purchase it from you over time?
Well, yeah, I wanted to create a succession plan because of obviously education frameworks that are coming through, etc. So keep myself compliant and educated till 2024, depending on what lands with regards to legislation.
Yep.
And putting a younger advisor in there, and we've got a great advisor. He's he's got he ticks all the boxes. He's young, he's keen, he's married, young children, mortgage, lives close to the office.
Fantastic.
So, and there's very few advisors around where our practice now operates out of, which is at shout out to Wellington Point.
Woo.
So yeah, it's a good timing from my point of view, and so from that perspective, it's great that we can take my old business, rolled it into the accountancy firm that was my referral source, which has turned out quite nicely now that the new...
Yes, of course. It limits their ability, right?
Yes. Yeah. So from that point of view, we've now got a wealth business inside the accountancy firm, which they own part of and I own part of. So
fantastic.
They're not experienced in running a financial planning business. I think I kind of am.
You'd hope so.
I hope so. So we're looking at creating efficiencies, working at that, software, how that works, and constantly my job, because I'm not doing day-to-day advice other than strategy stuff, I can look at, okay, where are our margins? What are we doing? How are we going about it? And can we build a decent business from this? Yeah. So we want to take it to another level now. Sensational.
I think cutting down or reducing expenses, that was a conversation I just had recently with a podcast the other day with Dylan Martin.
Yes.
That's one of his key sort of plans, I guess, since becoming the succession plan himself. And he's really done a lot of work on cutting the fat out. It's a very good strategy considering the 10x in costs for advice now, right? So, and on that, so advice, it seems like there's never a week that's not interesting. And by that, I mean, there's something new, right? So Frydenberg, I believe it was Friday last week. I'm not sure if you've seen this. I know very little about it at this stage, but basically they're receiving feedback for the next month on the following topics. And let me know your thoughts. No fees from a MySuper account to begin with, right? So no advice fees from a MySuper account. No. Mm-hmm. So that is interesting, right? So when they created the MySuper product, it very specifically had advice fees as one of the 7 fees or whatever that could come. Now they're ceasing that. So a MySuper product, it's looking like won't be able to receive an advice fee. which pushes, everyone into either non-MySuper products or out of, and of course there's going to be a bid issue there, right? Or it's charged out of pocket, right? Off the credit card, out of the bank account. To me, this is worrying a lot of advisors. Dylan, who I was speaking to, he mentioned sort of the majority of his ongoing fees are received from superannuation, and so even the most progressive advisors, if you want to call it that, would still have a huge chunk of their ongoing fees received from super. So this is, on top of everything else, just a new thing. Just a new thing
just
for the week.
The mix?
Yeah, just a new thing.
Was that part of the trial period as well?
Yeah. Well, funnily enough, there's a 30-day feedback which is going on right now. So what is that? How do you respond to something like that?
Well, it's just another aspect of our business that we have to deal with on a day-to-day basis, And I think, I'm not sure what the government's trying to achieve, whether they're still trying just to machinate?
Don't know. It's another word I don't know.
Yeah, sorry. Chew over?
Or masticate?
Help me here, people. Just trying to look like they're still doing stuff from the Royal Commission. Because they have.
Why do more? There's already so much.
Yeah, I know, but even the press from what I've seen the last couple of days is saying, did the Royal Commission go far enough? So is this part of Frydenberg showing that we haven't finished yet? This is just the start. So don't you worry too much. We're here.
Wow.
Maybe, I don't know.
Did the Royal Commission do enough? Oh my God! Everyone needs to calm down. Look, the industry needs to, especially the rules and regulations. Just give it time. Like, nothing that happens really rapidly works out well, right? So
we've seen that, haven't we?
Yeah, of course. I mean, we've seen it, but not over the course of, say, financial services, but over like society for thousands of years. You can kind of look back, and whenever rapid change comes in, it never ends well. So less grandstanding would be good. No one's arguing with the intent. But perhaps putting everything on the table at the same time, there's stretching and then there's stretching to break. And I was actually going through the numbers in the UK from 2011 to 2000 and I think it was 14 or 15, maybe even 16, and then since 2016 onwards. And it dropped at 20%. 20% of the industry dropped when it went through the equivalent of FOFA and Royal Commission and all that sort of stuff. And 20% left. And now it's kind of just flatlined. It's gone up a little. But depending on your source of data, that is a little bit contradictory, but give or take that was.
They've been a bit distracted too with Brexit as well too.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting to see what the figures look like had they not had that last 3.5 years of distraction.
That's a really good point. But Australia, we've already seen, so I was looking at some advisor ratings data, we've already seen from 25,000 down to 20,000. That was last year. So we've already had a huge hit.
Yeah,
right. Absolutely. So we've had our 20% hit up front. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens between, the end of the trial period as we're at right now up until the end of December. So for this year, how many more people leave? It's going to give us a really good idea of how much more burden has been put on Australia compared to anywhere else in the world. And we just need to stop for a second and say, well, I understand where we're trying to get to. I do. And I think you're going to find most financial planners agree with all of it. But how much more pressure can advisors handle? I mean, with that horrible statistic that 16 people killed themselves last year. And the mental health issue is appalling as it is. Do we really want to keep pushing it? We spoke before this podcast, and mental health was sort of one of the things that you wanted to get across. And what's your view on all of this? Yeah,
well, I think I'm not alone in having a reasonably difficult 2019. And those that know me know what that means. And it's, you think you're resilient and you try to keep your connections and your purpose and all that sort of stuff in focus. But then you get, as you just pointed out, another hit and another hit, and you try and put it into the background and use that resilience. Stoicism, is that another word I can use?
Yeah, I do know that one.
I was hoping you would. High five. But it can get wearing. So it's on one hand, I've got a business that I'm excited about building, etc. On the other hand, last year, as you know, it's no secret that we wound up my online advisors, passed our guys on to another advice group, and that was a difficult period. Coming through that, because that was my plan and to keep that and build that for the next 5 years or more. But the things that have changed, the way the government views things, the way the interpretation of or the way Fassi has come in and started to rule things, it's kind of like it is a difficult period of time, and we do have to be there for each other and look after each other, and not just pick up the phone and say, "Oh, well, it's all behind you now," which is what I had the other day. Oh, good, so it's all behind you, James. That's great. It's like, no, get fucked. It's not. But that's,
totally.
Thanks for adding those words. And I did actually have a chomp at this particular person, because it's kind of like, that's easy. That's an easy road to do. We can't keep doing that anymore. We need to be able to make sure, if we are going to be there and present for those of us, and probably all of us in one way or another, then we need to be there and present and expect that it's not just a short-term thing, that it is a long-term thing, and that we are trying to look after each other, not bring each other down.
Yes, 100%. Despite the multiple different styles of business models that are in XY, we never have a comment on it, or never take a position on it, because every advisor is different. Every clientele is different, and we want all of them to succeed. And one of the things that we don't really stand for is, oh, you're that style of advisor, therefore you don't deserve to be an advisor, or any equivalent of, or any variation of, because that's, first of all, appalling. And second of all, this industry has enough external pressure that having a go
enormous external pressure,
yes. that no other profession will ever go through, and the one thing that we can do is support one another. I just do not subscribe to the idea that one advisor would have a go at another, but I can say that I've seen largely positive commiseration, I guess, is probably the right way to put it.
I think it's not just that initial burst, if you know what I mean. So there's a longer, to me, it seems to be a longer period, because it is this unrelenting movement that's there through all the different bodies that are trying to take bits of our lives. And I don't want to turn this into a negative fest, because I'm not negative about it. It's just a discussion, and I don't think the associations are doing enough. The types of groups that they've aligned themselves with, and this is probably going to be a bit controversial, and I've spoken to an association about that. I'm saying, guys, because I did actually, hands up, can I put my hand up here? I actually did call one of those groups.
Wow. And
made an appointment and asked if this person specialised in financial services, and they specialised in child abuse. And I'm like, nah, I'm not done that. I haven't got the time, energy, effort to try and explain what's happening in this industry to be able to bring you to a point where you understand where I'm up to. So I just nah, I'm right. So I binned that appointment, and I gave that feedback back, and then blow me dead, I think 2 other associations are now using the same group, and they're a crisis management group that are designed to go in after cyclones and all those sorts of people. I don't think they're designed to be able to help advisors. Now, the question, of course, then, Clayton, is who is a group that can help us, those people that want to reach out? Who is the group that can do that? Or do you just go and source those elsewhere in the hope that you find the right one that's right for you? Yeah. Because, there's you just look at America, everyone has a counsellor in America. Everyone has their coach or their person that they use as a sounding board to be able to keep them on track. So I think Australia's a bit slow on the pick up in that area, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
So I'd like to see the associations do more, not just put a Band-Aid on it, which is kind of how I feel that they are at the moment.
Yeah.
If they want to play in this space, they don't want to play in this space, that's fine. That's okay by me. But just don't pretend to play in this place.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a very tough thing. One of the things that Sam Henderson came on to speak about, and
I did listen to that one.
Yeah,
Yes.
the main reason why he came on and was to talk about this exact thing. It was the shame of being, he was, I guess, the front and center, the pinpoint that received the most flack.
Absolutely.
Out of all advisors. There's no need to try and go into any of what happened for him to be there. We covered that in depth. But he sort of came on and said that how did he put it? So Brene Brown, and it was about sort of him airing or owning the shame to lower its power over him, I guess was his central message. And yeah, there's a part of me that goes, well, I'm a part of the infrastructure with this podcast to ensure that advisors are hearing the fact that shame is being owned and publicly, as you just said, you put your hand up, right?
Yeah.
Like, and the amount of people that'll be out there and be like, oh my God, like James, like I'm sure you know a lot of people, and that will in turn give strength to other advisors.
Well, I hope it does, Clayton. Yeah, because I think that this whole thing about shame, we're all in this together.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter if you're serving high-end advisors or high-end clients or low-end clients. We are doing our job and aiming for doing the right thing by the client. In the main, most of us are trying to do that. But what I find about this industry is just fascinating, and as you rightfully pointed out, I move around in a lot of different circles, is there is this percentage of dick swingers that move around in this industry. I know you weren't expecting that, were you? And you see them, they walk into the room and they're John Wayne impersonation and they're just having a lovely time. And you're like, oh, come on, bro, you're just in this business like the rest of us. You're not smarter. You're not, you might think you are, but if you just, got your head down from wherever it is and realize that we're trying to do all the right thing, and your clients will always be your clients, my clients will always be my clients.
Yeah.
And it doesn't need to be like that, and they're possibly the same people that like pull other people apart. And I don't think we've got that luxury anymore because there's so much happening that we need to try and find other ways of being collaborative and to be able to work on these issues together. They're not going to go away. We have to deal with it. Let's move on. You know what I mean? Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, the concept of dragging down your peer is in this industry, in this environment, makes so little sense. And I'm sure
but you've seen it, right? Yeah,
I have seen it. But I'm sort of in a bubble as well. In that I get to see the best. I see a lot of the best. I see a lot of the people like yourself, mate, who are more giving and generous of their time and want others to succeed. And the people, that contribute on the platform are those that are really selflessly saying, the only way that we're going to survive as a profession is if we all get better together. There is so little competition between one another. You would actually have to write a business plan to go after someone's.
But you would.
Yeah. There's so few advisors, so many people that need advice, that if we get better at explaining what it is that we do, delivering what it is that we do, and getting better outcomes on what we do, then the rest, there's just not a need for us to speak badly about one another at all.
And there'll be more clients available and around
absolutely
in 2 or 3 years' time. And I think that number of 20,000 is going to come down. Maybe you've heard the same thing. I think it's going to sit around 15,000. So,
yeah,
and I'm not saying this year. I'm saying for the next year or so.
Yeah.
Certainly as we lead up to 2024, then we'll see some changes in the numbers. And it'll be interesting to see how advisor ratings trackings are going on that. On how those numbers are going to
I think one of the things that's keeping it low is the fact that we've got this professional year and no one really knows how to get new advisors in. So that's contributed to the reduction as well. But once sort of more clarity comes out, I think this year, I think we'll start seeing new advisors technically, even though they've done their 100 hours of professional year and they've probably been even seeing clients, with the other advisor or whatever. But the methodology for how to get a new advisor on the financial advisor register isn't clear yet, which strangely enough.
Yeah, that and also those people still need to do their ethics exam. Or
there's
pass
that as
their
well.
ethics
Yes,
exam.
yes,
so
yes.
there's two things there. It's that those people that either couldn't be fagged or just didn't get over the line for whatever reason.
Yep.
They could. I'm not sure what those numbers are going to look like.
Yeah.
And then, as you say, you've got the professional year guys that how do you manage those and bring those through?
Yeah. The first year exam is a very interesting one, whereas we've got, an 85% pass rate or whatever. That 15%, I know a few people in that 15%, would not have guessed, if I'm being honest, that they would be in the 15%. Now, so one or two things. Is my understanding of their intelligence incorrect? Or is it what I'm hearing, which is you get out of the exam, you got no idea if you passed or not? Are the questions such as that there are potentially more than one correct answer, but only one's getting answered as correct? So how do we find all that out? That's the question. Oh, man, absolutely. So for the 15% of advisors that didn't pass on their first time, that's kind of a substantially high enough number to not feel too bad, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And then the conspiracy theory, and you say, well, is that been designed or is it just so happens?
I think it's probably a lack of design. Right. If I was to take a stab, if you think about how impossible it is for someone to come into financial advice, whenever someone makes a product or starts a company to come into financial advice and they don't have a background in it, I just think, well, good luck.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, even, Mark Boris, one of the most successful businessmen in Australia.
Sure.
I mean, Yellow Brick Road has completely capitulated.
Yeah.
I mean,
the share price was 2 cents or something.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. And I mean, if someone, he's one of the most successful financial services, especially financial services businessmen that Australia has ever had.
Yeah.
And not even he could.
And he's brought in talent upon talent upon talent to try and get that side of the business up
absolutely.
And running.
Now, so I don't know who's writing this test, but I can guarantee you, if that's not someone from a history of financial planning, they just don't understand it. It's so weird, but it's so true.
Well, there's two things. There's the writing of the test and then there's the marking of the test. So is the test being written the right way? Yes, no, or maybe, who knows? And then how is it being marked in relation to what they're wanting to achieve with the results?
Yeah, that's a really good point.
So I don't know. But you're right, it's not an easy industry, is it? You wake up one morning and say, I want to be in the financial services industry. Well, best of luck with that, sunshine.
Yeah, exactly.
Let me know how that goes.
Yeah, exactly. If you come wading into this with a checkbook and not much else, it's not going to end up too well. But I will say that some technology companies are certainly trying. And I know tech is one of those topics that very much interests you. Now, so you've got everything from Salesforce, one of the biggest tech companies in the world.
It's one of the 5 now, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's so big that they offer what's called not a software as a service, but a PaaS, a platform as a service. So as a platform as a service, you've got AWS, you've got Microsoft. Salesforce is up there. Salesforce is one of these companies that are now you can build your SaaS on using Salesforce as your code base,
and not have to go off to Amazon or Microsoft.
Exactly, which is crazy, right? So if you go, the biggest companies in the world, Salesforce are now are one of, and they have a financial services cloud. Right, so you've got as big as Salesforce down to, tiny little companies. Let's call it Adrian Patty with Advice Revolution.
God love you, Adrian.
Yeah, God love you, mate. God loves a trier.
Yes.
And so an unfunded 3-year company where they've just been developing tech with their own. So they're using their own funding, right? So you've got everything from Adrian Paddy up to Salesforce, right? And everything in between. And you've got levels of success. And one of the things when I was doing consulting at Advisor Ratings is I saw the NPS scores for tech all sucked across the board. Not a financial planner was happy with tech. None of them.
No.
There wasn't like a standout. And I do understand it's because rules and regulations change so much quicker than the ability for tech to keep up. So I understand the concept. But with all that said, what's your current tech stack? Where do you see efficiencies and where do you see the future?
Yeah. I think the CRM part is an easy bit, even though some people still seem to get that wrong. But it seems to be name, address, phone number, date of birth. It's a good start for CRM, don't you think?
Yeah.
But even some people seem to get that wrong, and I won't mention names. It took them a while to get there. I'd like to thank insert name here. We went over through that because we've been waiting to see what some of these new players, you've got your C-Cubes, you've got your IntelliFlows, you've got your Advisor Intelligence, although my wife thinks that's an oxymoron to have Advisor and Intelligence in the same sentence.
Ooh,
I know, cruel. And obviously the other main players, Advisor Logic's now gone to
Morningstar.
Midwinter's been purchased by... Can't remember the name.
Yeah.
And so we looked at it and we wanted to be able to keep moving. So again, because I've employed advisor, what we did, if you want me to mention who we landed on.
Please, yeah.
We landed on Midwinter.
Cool.
Hello, Julian. How are you?
Julian's a good guy.
Yeah. And that has not been without its pain. So we are actually going through that now because as I said, the CRM is the easy bits. Try and get the output in an efficient way.
Totally.
And get that information that you want out, reviewed, and to the client quickly is what I'm now spending a lot of time with my guys trying to get that right. I mean, isn't that a fucking surprise?
Oh my God! But
even me trying to work on this.
I mean, who's doing it well? I just don't know who's doing it well. For the people that are doing the outsourcing, I can see that working well. I don't know the people who are doing the automation well.
No, and I think those that seem to do are bringing those other tech people in to employ them, put them in the office or have them on contract or whatever it might be. So to try and do it on your own, unless you do have a good understanding of tech by itself, then if you just say, it's a piece of software, I'll take that, thanks, then it's just going to be a struggle. And I don't think you'll ever get on top of it.
Advisors expect it to be like Microsoft Word, whereas it's more like MS-DOS.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And other legacies behind that probably.
Exactly.
Whatever that legacy might be. C-prompt, that's what it was.
C-prompt. Yes. Oh, my goodness. Was that on the Amiga?
Oh, dear. Unless you even understand the whole thing where it's come along to be able to know that the output is not going to give you what you need. So how do you create that, or what money do you need to spend to be able to do that? You can get it done, but it's going to cost you a lot of money.
A lot of money.
That's right. And that then adds to the time that we're all having to spend now to make sure we comply with bid. To be able to give the client the right information, make sure, because it's the whole thing, it's not in the SOA, it didn't happen.
Yeah.
So how they manage all that tech, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's still, as is with those 3 new players coming through, and I think there's someone else coming through. There's agent stuff around the fact find. There's Prime Solve, there's Nod, and there's 2 or 3 others that are all getting things. Yeah.
Nod's definitely an interesting one. They've expanded out of just financial services, I believe. They're now dealing with law and things like that. If there's a automatic document creation, and
even law to a certain degree actually probably is easier in some way because precedent
absolutely
equals result,
it's probably a more accurate use of the AI. My Prosperity has a pre-fact find tool.
Map My Plan, we can keep naming them.
Well, Map My Plan's a very interesting one, and I've spoken about them before because they operate without advisors. They launched with the idea of working with advisors because Paul Feeney, the founder CEO, he's a former advisor. and yet planners were just like, nah, not interested. And so they've ended up as a very much a corporate benefit tool, and huge companies are working with them, right?
Yes.
And so they're able to offer simple SOAs for the equivalent of, like $20 or $30 a year, right?
Yes.
Like really, really, really cheap, which is a whole interesting thing.
They're interested in the fact that I think my plan, correct me if I'm wrong, don't quite understand what the difference between general advice and personal advice. So they're creating personal advice documentation for general advice.
Correct. Yeah. It's personalized general advice.
Yes. And I'm not sure how that's going to play out with regards to.
Well, it is delivered in an SOA.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's delivered. So even in its most harsh interpretation, it's and
the question I ask is why isn't it just a strategy paper? Because it's theoretically, it's not really a statement of advice.
That's a really good point. It's a really good point. Because they don't mention product as well.
That's right.
I don't know. I mean, Paul's a really bright guy, so whatever the reason is, I'm sure he'd
Peter
know.
McCarthy from
Goodness gracious,
My Prosperity as well. They're smart guys.
Yeah, expanding into the UK.
Are they?
Yeah, big expansion into the UK. We're actually trying to follow him. XY is expanding into the UK this year as well. Yeah,
let's polish up on your English,
please.
Can we mention the other tech with regards to CPD?
Absolutely.
Because one of my roles is in regards to CPD. I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, because that's another thing that's changing. Up till now, we've just had one person in the marketplace.
Yep.
And now there's a couple of new players, and full disclosure, I'm involved with Caddy, which we call the Netflix of CPD. But there's also, is it Aspire or Inspire? I'd get that wrong. I think it's called Inspire with Financial Standard. So they've actually redone their stack now, and their user interface, etc. So, but it's like anything, they're purely doing Financial Standard stuff.
Oh, right. So you read Financial Standard articles, you get CPD points.
Inside, yes. So you can subscribe to
that's good.
Yeah, so there's Financial Standard now starting to make a movement in this area.
Yep.
We've got the seasoned player.
Yeah, Kaplan.
Yep. Thank you very much. You can mention that. And then we've got also Caddy. So Caddy's been around. I've been involved with him for the last 2 years. I'm now a brand ambassador, so I go around and talk with people about why I like Caddy, and the reason why I like Caddy is we can put things like XY Advisor podcast in there, and people can get micro CPD points just to listen to yours and my voice.
Very good.
Yes. That's what's this podcast worth? You reckon? Half a point?
20
strategy.
20 all in strategy.
Yeah, try that. Run it by your AFSL and see how it goes. So we can just bring in information and PDFs and videos from all over the place, so people can get CPD points for just doing their everyday stuff that they're doing anyway. Because the people are listening to your podcast, but getting no inverted commas credit for it.
Yeah, actually, we started mentioning that at the end of all our podcasts. We go, hey, go to Caddy to get CPDs, and then if you go to Caddy via XY Plus, you get a 20% discount, which is pretty cool. What other tech are you using? So you got CPD, CRM.
Yes.
Too many acronyms.
Yes, there is.
You got your CRM, which you're using as Midwinter.
Yes.
What are you plugging in around it?
Well, that's what we're building it now for this year, because we only merged our businesses with the accountancy firm mid last year. So it was very much about getting that right up till Christmas. And now we are looking at what do we add in? Do we add a power planning service? Do we add in other tech? Maybe looking at Paddy's business.
Yeah.
So, and is that going to be an efficient way of doing it? So if it's not going to add or reduce time, it ain't going in.
No, 100%.
It's so that's kind of where we're looking at, and we are playing a little bit with Prime Solve.
What's that?
Prime Solve is a kind of like a probability engine. So you can put a whole range of, it's goals based, put a whole range of goals in, and it'll work out the probability of that, and then you can discuss those goals with the clients.
Right.
And I'm maybe trying to think. Tim Hall's the guy that's involved in that. Yes.
Cool.
So we've been helping them out a bit to see where that goes. We're not sure where it's going to go. It's like all this tech stuff that's just long tail.
Mate, it's huge. Yeah. It is huge, and you've got guys like Vince Scully.
Yes.
right? Sherpa.
Sherpa, yeah.
I
I don't know where he is there. What his software is doing these days.
Well, he went through and built out a massive. We interviewed him, a massive amount of if when functions, and he's the master of automation. So if there's
another smart man,
my God, like if there's anyone that understands this better than anyone else, it's definitely him. And he solved the problem. I know he spent a lot of time, effort, and focus on achieving that. And that's his entire business model. So yeah, it'd be good to catch up with him and see how it's turned out.
Yeah. See where his software's up to.
Yeah.
But they changed. So, that's the whole thing about test, measure, pivot.
I know. That's hence why we, XY building the platform, we built one for 2 years and then canned it in 2 weeks because it sucked. And then I did the deal with the Silicon Valley guys, and that was just outsourcing was the right decision 100% until such time as we get to a point that we want to take that on again.
Yes.
It works really well for us. But the question I think a lot of advisors need to ask themselves is how much of their time, effort, and focus do they want to spend on automation? How much is simply outsourcing a better option? You know what I mean? Is the Philippines a better option? Is it worth tackling the tech, or is it worth having a daily huddle with your staff overseas who are doing it hands-on?
Well, I've done both. So,
what do you prefer?
And I've had the Philippines and the daily huddle with the Philippines. We had 3 or 4, I can't remember now, at one stage. And it's a matter of trying to get the right people.
Yes.
And keeping them on focus.
Who did you use? Did you find the people yourself?
No. That was through Danielle Cornelius at 5 Elk.
Understood.
Yes.
And do they train their staff in what it means to be a financial services employee?
Yes.
Interesting. Yes. Okay, cool.
And the business was reasonably young when we were using 5 Elk. So I think Danielle's learned a few things since then.
Of course.
They go through I think it's like a 4 or 6 week training.
Yeah.
How to log into different software, etc. To get the data out that you want to get out if you're trying to do reviews and all those sorts of things. So would I do that again? I would, just purely for admin tasks. I wouldn't do it for any advice task again.
Would you include a statement of advice in admin?
No.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think it's even harder now with getting external people, if they're not in the minutiae of advice today, trying to get them to understand about what is best interest duty and what isn't best interest, what's in scope, what's out of scope. Have you covered all the goals? Have you covered everything off inside the SOA? So if you did mention one thing, why is it not mentioned again? And picking that up, where I think somebody who's living and breathing it, paraplanners in Australia, and we're starting to talk to a couple now about what that looks like, and they understand a bit more about scope and making sure that it flows and is there. So
even outsourcing onshore, in Australia, is certainly outsourcing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's many good advisors that have their own paraplanning businesses in Australia. One of the interesting things is they're getting harder and harder to find because of the level of income they can earn as a SOA checker.
Yes.
With Deloitte and whatnot. What are they calling it?
The
remediation.
Yes.
The remediation, it's certainly triple figures, and you just have to turn up and get told what to do and then walk out. And
there's those files for the day.
Correct. Go home at 5 o'clock and you don't have to think about it, right? So there's an appeal. Certainly an appeal there, but a lot of the people that were delivering SOAs have gone over and done that. So it does make it a little bit more difficult, but that's just a seasonal thing. I mean, certainly the question on whether to outsource, whether to do internal with your own staff, how much effort you're going to put on tech.
How big do you need to be to get a full-time paraplanner?
Totally.
Are they going to be a combination of admin versus advice or SOA building? So they're the things that we're just looking at the moment. So I asked a question to somebody. It's around 50% of advice firms have some form of paraplanning, and about 50% of those also are admin. So
are admin
and SOA?
Yeah, well, naturally, that's my paraplanners were always my admin as well.
Yes.
I was never large enough to, although I had sort of outsourced some stuff but certainly Australia. But then other people who have been able to grow larger companies than what I have, and they would have specialized people. So yeah, it makes kind of sense, about 50%. And then of that 50% are doing admin as well.
No, the question is then, what are the other 50% doing?
Well, outsourcing, I guess.
Well,
unless they do their own plans.
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, actually, especially if you've gone through the paraplanning route, which I did, but I didn't want to do it anymore. I sort of got out of paraplanning. I was like, never again. It was like when I was doing accounting. I did tax accounting for 3 years, but my God, I can't even do my own BAS. Like, give me headaches. So it depends if you've got the ability and the desire, but it's just it's a case of want, need.
Well, I suppose the thing is, an advisor is somewhere between 300 and 350 an hour. Yeah, give or take.
Give or take.
If you can find people that are equally as skilled at doing an SOA for significantly less than that.
Yeah. No, 100%.
So it's kind of like, doesn't really how big or how small you are, particularly how small you are. You've got to start looking at the time you're taking to build this. And an SOA today does take more time.
Oh man, an SOA definitely. Which is why I think in this new environment, many advisors are choosing not to bring on new clients.
At the moment, yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like, let's just handle current,
or even take clients off. They're taking,
yes,
which is what we've done. If anybody that doesn't fit in a certain framework, we've said, thank you very much.
100%.
Bringing our client base down to
the
more workable group.
Yeah, if you're under a certain amount of revenue per year, despite how much I like helping you, there's just no way the risk that keeping you as a client is way more than the revenue I'm earning. So therefore, it's like, what do you do? And so, yeah, it's kind of a sad thing. I think this year is going to be taking that bottom 10 to 15% of the company and politely moving them on as clients, probably not taking on a hell of a lot of new clients unless you get yourself in order where you're not charging fees from the super account. You're doing things super progressive,
strategy type stuff.
If you can get to that stage. One of the things that I've been challenging myself on is if I was to start a financial planning business today, what would my process look like? And I think I would literally the first year, it would be an education and goals discovery process before a statement of advice would ever even exist. So it would almost be like the first year is to is to find out about you to find out about financial advice, and then at the end of the year, do you want to continue? Or in that case, what needs to happen. I know about you in order to make it happen. Then we'll do the statement of advice. Whereas my whole business was, let's meet a couple of times. Here's your advice document.
Yes.
And then I'll spend the next few years explaining to you
reminding you why we're doing things we're doing. Yes.
Which makes no sense, right? So it's like getting married and then getting to know the person later. So what I would do would be to spend that first year, and I think that kind of helps with like no locking, this whole idea of 1 year renewals. So the client comes on, spend that first year, it's not going to be a huge amount of money, whatever your upfront fee for the year is, not including an SOA production. Let's catch up a handful of times. I want to know about you. You need to know about it, get educated on what advice is. And then at the end of that point, I kind of, as far as best interest duty is concerned, my goodness, as far as ethical is concerned, my goodness, like this is a well-educated clients entering into advice in it. I think it sets sort of the frame for a piece of advice, and then spending that year sort of implementing the first part of that advice, and then the next year implementing the second. And then, every couple of years you do need to pivot because things change, and it just...
You lose your job or whatever.
Correct. You get married, you have a family.
Yes.
You go one way or the other. Things change. And I think, at least theoretically, I've solved in my mind what I would do.
Yeah, well, I think that comes back to what accountants do, and that is charge an hourly rate. So you're taking up this amount of time.
Yeah.
We're adding value.
Yeah.
You're learning, which is value as well.
Yes. A huge amount of value.
And if you're not talking about product and there's no urgency about talking about product, then you could actually recoup via an hourly rate, and you probably end up earning more.
I know. Just completely removing
Yes.
additional costs that come in with the advice process.
And people know what they're paying for it too, Clayton. Don't they? They've got a very. You spend an hour with me. Here's my invoice.
Yeah. I don't think I'd go to the hourly invoice. I think I still would do outcomes orientated invoice, but I think I could sort of justify it with hours,
Right.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, if you needed to. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is where I think the accountants are starting to have this discussion about recovery rates and how much, that an advisor can charge, and do they charge for outcomes or do they charge for time, etc. And I think that we're going to see a bit more of charging for time, but a proper charge. We're not talking about $150 an hour. We're talking about proper charging for time, like any senior person inside a law firm or an accountancy firm would do.
Yes.
And then add those other people who are doing work on top of that. So you saw me for an hour and my staff did this for an hour. Therefore, that rate in our practice is this.
Yeah.
But people know that because there's paperwork to be able to show what that is. Yeah.
Yeah. It is an interesting thing in terms of how things are changing.
Yes.
How advice is evolving, the additional requirements that advisors are facing, the burdens that are being suffered to be able to have conversations like this with you, where you've gone through a tough 2019, but you're still here in front of me wanting to sort of share a bit about your journey and some things about how you're making your professional life better. It's inspiring, mate.
Oh, thank you.
So thank you so much for sort of taking your time out of your day. I believe I'll be receiving that invoice you mentioned per hour. Hopefully no other staff was involved.
You did buy me a coffee, to be fair.
but
I am a sucker for a coffee.
Mate, thank you so much for coming on. For any advisors that want to reach out for any number of reasons, what's the best way to get in contact with you?
Well, probably by my mobile, or they'll be in the show notes if you want to. Yeah, that's the easiest way.
Cool.
Or an email address I'll leave there.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Awesome, mate. Well, thank you for coming on.
My pleasure. Thanks, Brad.